Hey, what's up? Today we're going to create this snow globe. This video is part of a Christmas giveaway that I'm hosting in collaboration with XP. Follow this tutorial, post it on your Instagram, and you will have a chance to win 1 or 3 drawing tablets from XP. All the information you need to join is in the description down below. So yeah, let's do this. Before we get started, go into Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and then search for Extra and activate Extra Objects. And then we'll start with our snowman. So press Shift A, Mesh, and add a UV sphere. Control 2 to subdivide, right click, Shade Auto Smooth, Tab to go into edit mode, S and Z, and we'll scale it down just a tiny bit. Press 1 on your numpad or your tilde key to open your view menu and go into front view. Press Shift D and Z to duplicate it and move it up. Tab to go into edit mode, and we'll scale it down a bit for the head. There we go, and that looks great. Okay, let's add the head. So press Shift A, Mesh, add a circle, G and Z to move it up, and then press Tab, F to fill, E, extrude it up, I to inset, E to extrude it up again, and then S, and we'll scale it down just a tiny bit. Then go into our modifier tab, and then we'll add a bevel modifier, change the segments to 4, and then we'll decrease the amount to maybe 0.3. And then press Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision modifier. Right click, Shade Auto Smooth, press G and Z, move it down, and press R and X, and we'll scale it back a tiny bit. There, we can increase the scaling a bit. Maybe even make it a tiny bit bigger. There, and I think that looks pretty cute. Okay, for the nose, we'll add a cube. G and Y will move it forward a bit, and then S tab, scale it down, S and Y, scale it up in the Y-axis a bit. Go into face select by pressing 3 on your keyboard, and it will scale down. This face, leave the edit mode, press Ctrl 3 to add a subdivision modifier. Tab to go back into edit mode, and then we'll add a loop cut with Ctrl R, and we'll move that down all the way back. And then we can shade auto smooth. And then in front view, we can move that up, and then we'll go and G and Y, and we'll move it in. There we go. Then for the eyes, we'll simply add a cylinder, and then we'll scale the cylinder down, scale it down in the set as well a bit. Press RX 90 to rotate it, and then we can add a bevel modifier, 4 segments. Increase the amount again to maybe 0.03. Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision modifier, right click, Shade Auto Smooth, and then we'll just place it in position. There, and G and Y, and we'll move it inside the head. And then with R and Z, we can rotate it on the Z axis. And there we go. Maybe if we press R and X twice and G and Z twice, we can move it in. There we go. Then see how that looks from the front. Z twice, move it out a bit. There, yeah, that looks good. Add a mirror modifier. And then for mirror object, select the head. So we have an eye on each side. The nose is maybe a tiny bit long, so I'm gonna just scale it down a bit in the Y-axis. There, yeah, I think that looks much better. Okay, and for the scarf, go into edit mode, press set to toggle X-ray, go into front view, and then we'll select maybe all of these, and then we'll toggle X-ray again, and then we can hold shift and we'll select those, and then maybe those. There we go. And then press Shift D, Enter, P, and separate by selection. Tab to leave edit mode, and then select the new object. Go into edit mode. Press A to select all. S, scale it down just a tiny bit so it's behind the surface. And then press Alt E and extrude faces like normals. And then we can extrude it like that. Leave edit mode. We can increase our subdivision modifier. And then I'm just gonna move it down a tiny bit. There, that looks cute. Okay, let's create some arms. For that, we will add a single vert and we'll extrude that. So Shift A, Mesh, and we'll add a single vert. Press G and X and we'll move it to the side. Go into vert select, and then in front view with vert select is 1 on your keyboard, by the way, and then press E to extrude. And then E to extrude again, and we'll create some arms. And here you can basically just create the shape you want. And then we'll add a skin modifier, press A to select all, and then Control A, and we'll decrease it. And then leave edit mode, press Control 3 to add a subdivision modifier. And then here we can really play around with the shape, so we can see how it will look. If we select this vert that we know is there, and press Control A, make it a tiny bit thinner. And maybe make this one a tiny bit thinner as well. Let's place it into the body. And then if we right click and we set our origin to geometry, there, I think that looks great. Maybe I make it a tiny bit thicker, everything with Control A, there. And then that a tiny bit thinner, there. I like how that looks. And then we'll just mirror it with a mirror modifier again, like we did with the eyes. So we'll just mirror object, there we go. And that's it for the snowman. Okay, now let's start with the base. Shift A, Mesh, and we'll add a circle. We'll move that down, and then we'll scale it up. And then F to fill. And then here we can kind of play around with how we want the shape to be. So we could extrude it down, and I'm just gonna simply add one loop cut with Control R, right click it, and then Control B, and I'll bevel it. And then Alt E, extrude faces along normals, and I'll extrude it in a tiny bit. Just keeping it simple. And then we'll add a bevel modifier, change our segments to 4, decrease the amount to 0.03, Control 2 to add a subdivision modifier, right click, shade smooth. And that looks like a clean little base. Okay, then we'll add some snow on the floor. Shift A, Mesh, add a circle, we'll move that down, we'll scale that up a tiny bit, F to fill, E, extrude it up, Tab to leave edit mode, and press Control 3 to add a subdivision modifier. We'll go back into edit mode, and then with Control R, we'll add a loop cut, and we'll move it all the way down. Then in face select with 3, and then select the top face, and then inset it with I a few times. And then right click shade auto smooth. And then from front view, we can just place it there inside our base. There we go. Then we have a nice layer of snow. Then we'll add some snowflakes. You could use a particle system for this. I'm just adding a few snowflakes. So I'm just gonna add a UV sphere and then scale that down. And then just Control 2 to add a subdivision modifier. Right click shade auto smooth. And then I will just place a few in the position I want. So with Alt D, you can make a linked duplicate. Maybe place one there. And just kind of move them around a tiny bit. I'm just adding a few to add the visuals to it. Nothing too crazy. There. Maybe one up as well. Somewhere there. And then there one, maybe. And we'll put this one down a bit. There. Put that one down a bit as well. There. You can place them however you like, of course. There. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Okay. Then for our glass, we'll add a round cube. Here, Shift A, Mesh, round cube. And then in the menu here, change the radius to 1. We can change our divisions to... Let's change it to 10. And then we can go into edit mode and then S, and we'll scale it up. Go into front view, and then we can toggle X-ray by pressing Z, toggle X-ray, and then we can kind of place it the way we want it here. There, make it a tiny bit bigger still. There. That looks good. Press tab to go into edit mode, and press A to activate the knife tool. Then here at the base, we'll click, press A so we're in a straight line, then press C so we're cutting through the whole object, click and then enter. Okay, that's perfect. And then we can just select this bottom half. We'll select it with third select. And then press X and V and make sure we have everything. Yeah, that's great. So then to modifiers, we'll add a solidify modifier, and then we'll change the thickness of that inwards a tiny bit. And then we can press Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision modifier, right click, shade auto smooth. Okay, that's that. I think that is looking great. So then we'll go into front view and we'll add our camera, Shift A, and then add a camera. Press G and Y, we'll move it back. Press 0 on your numpad, or for your view menu, go and view camera. And then in our scene settings, our output settings, we'll change the resolution to 1920 by 1920. And then here, if you press, with our camera selected, if you press G and Z twice, you can kind of move our camera forwards and backwards so we can place it just like that. Then we'll select our globe and move that down. And then with R twice, we can kind of add a slight rotation to it. There, just like that. Then we'll add a background, Shift A, Mesh, Edit Plane, press RX90 to rotate it. And then G and Y will move it backwards. Tab to go into edit mode and scale it up so it covers your whole background. Yes, that's perfect. Okay, then we'll start adding some materials, but first we'll go to our render engine settings, change it to cycles, device to GPU compute, viewport samples, depends on your computer. I'm changing it to 128. Render samples also depends on your computer. I'm just putting it on 512. I'm going to scroll down. I'll change our color management to medium high contrast. And then now we can go into a rendered view. So if you press Z and the shading is in rendered, then I want to just quickly add one light to our scene. Then we'll start adding the materials. And after that, we'll start adjusting the lights. So if you press Shift A, light, and we'll add an area light. Press G and Z to move that up. Press period and change your pivot point to 3D cursor. Then we'll press RX60, RZ60 minus, like that. And then maybe we'll change this power to 150 for now. Then at least we have some light. So then we'll start with our materials. So we'll select our background, to material tab, add a new material. We'll call that background, and our color is going to be AA9CD7. Okay, then for the wooden base, we'll select the base. We'll go into our shading tab. I'll zoom in on it a tiny bit. Add a new material, call that wood. And then here we're going to add some nodes. So press Shift A, we'll add a texture coordinate. Shift A, search, add a mapping node. We'll add a Musgrave texture. We'll add a noise texture. And then last, we'll add a color ramp. And then you can go and connect all of these to each other. And then our color ramp will go into base color. And this will give us a kind of like a wood texture. We'll just change the scaling a tiny bit. If we decrease it, and we'll decrease the Y, decrease the X some more, and then we'll decrease the Z. And there. It gives us a nice wood texture. So for me, it's 0.55, 0.44, and 0.3. But you can play around with your own scaling, of course, see what you like. And then in our color ramp, we will adjust the colors. For the dark color, I'm using 552 E16. For the light color, I will be using FFA D79. There, and it gives us a nice wood material. Okay, then for our glass, add a new material. Call that glass. We'll leave the base color as is. We'll change the roughness to 0. Then we'll change the transmission to 1. like that. And then we can maybe decrease the IOR to 1.2 for now. Yeah, maybe we'll change the color of the class, give it a slight purple or blue tint later. But for now, this will do. And I'm just going to select the glass and press H to hide it so we can color the rest of it. We'll start with our snow. So select the bottom, call that material snow. We can leave the color as is. I'm just going to decrease the roughness to 0.2. And then now we can select all our objects that are going to be snow. So hold shift and select them. That and that one, and then shift click the material that you already gave the snow material last. And then press Ctrl L and then link materials. And then we have all our materials linked. Then we'll give our hat a nice darkest color. Hat. And then our base color is going to be 261.5C. And our roughness, once again, 0.2 might be a bit too much. I'm changing it to 0.3. Then for our scarf, a nice red color. Change our color to CA444D with roughness of 0.3. The nose, a nice orange color, E77552, and once again a roughness of 0.3. The eyes, I'm just going to make them darker and give the same roughness, so just move it down a tiny bit to 575757, roughness of 0.3. And for our wooden arms, change our base color to 915741 with a roughness of 0.3. Okay, and that's it for the materials. Then we'll go to our world color settings. So to the world tab, change the color, change it to H6A ECF. And then now we can press Alt H and our glass bowl will come back. And then I will start adding the lighting for real. So this left light that we already have here, let's start playing around with that one first. We'll change the shape to disk, change the size to 3. Then we'll change the color to BDC 7FF. And then let's start with a power of 1000 maybe. Just like that. And then we'll press Shift D, RZ 120, and then RXX twice and move it down a tiny bit. GZ, move it back. We'll change this power to 500, make it darker, also a bit more white. There we go. Then we'll add a backlight, Shift A, light, add an area light, press RX90, and then G and Y, move it back. And then we'll change the size to 3, shape to square. Color is going to be FFE 7FF, and then just a crazy power, maybe like start off with 3000 and we'll see how that looks. Maybe I'm gonna make it 4 even. 4000. I like how it flows through, and then I'm going to move it back just a tiny bit. Yeah, I think that looks pretty cool. Now I want to add a nice area light inside of the bowl that kind of shines like a warmer light on our snowman. So if I'm just adding another area light, and then I'm going to press set, go into solid, and then I can just kind of period, change it to medium point, makes it easier. There, change this to disk as well. Just a slight soft light. Go back into rendered view by pressing Z. We change it to like 200 and we can see what happens. We'll change the color to FFD 3B1. And the power can be much less. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I'm gonna try and play around with it a tiny bit more. Maybe if we change our pivot point to 3D cursor, we rotate it a tiny bit more. Here we can see. One, just very soft. Just a soft light on there. That looks awesome. Okay, so that's it. Thanks for joining me. If you have any questions or requests, drop them in the comment section below. I'd love to see your result, so tag me on Instagram. If you enjoyed this tutorial, feel free to like and subscribe. See you soon!